Right, this time at the Quick Speed Shop, I'm going to tell you all about my 1931 Ford Model A Coupe. It's a traditional hot rod built with mostly old traditional parts, and I'm going to talk about it right now. It's a What You Talking About Wednesday with a Model A Coupe. I'm a professional, don't try this at home. Alright, so what I got here, this is a mostly original paint 1931 Ford Model A Coupe. I built this car, let's see, about 10 years ago now, pretty much from parts, and I'm going to show you some of the special tricks and features on it and what it's got here, so let's get into it right now. Here we go. First of all, this is a custom bodied coupe. I call it custom because originally this was a sport coupe, which if you're familiar with Model A Fords, a sport coupe had standard steel coupe doors, but it had a canvas top and canvas down here with no quarter windows. So when I bought this car, I bought the body, and it was sitting on a 28 AR chassis, which is the wrong chassis. It's a Model A chassis, but it was for the earlier body style car. So that just this coupe body was sitting on that 28 chassis. It had come out of a barn. Somebody had tried to make it into a homemade hot rod. They'd cut the top of the doors off. They had taken the hinges out of the doors and they had stick welded the doors shut here and on the other side. So it was pretty much made into like a homemade, like old 50 style roadster. But I don't think it was ever on the road like that. Or maybe the body was. But I bought it for I think $1,400 in 2011, I believe. And I completely rebuilt the whole car. I started with the chassis. It's got an original Model A frame under it that I lengthened by taking two Model A frames. The front half of this came out of was only about 2/3 of the frame, and the rear section, and I came out from under a trailer. I combined the two. I stretched the rear 7 and 5/8 inches or whatever like that to put the spring behind the rear axle, so I could use a 38 rear axle and rear spring setup. I'll show you that when we talk about suspension. I found this hood that's pretty much color matches the body. And then I built my own steel top for this thing. The top is completely custom made by me. It's got steel right here. This has got steel Model A pickup pieces. The center skin is from a 75 Pontiac Firebird. The rear window surround here, I had Model A sedan door tops here, like this portion here. And I chopped and I channeled them. I cut them down. I made this rear quarter window. So a real Model A 5-window coupe will have a curve like this and like this in the back window. This window is a square or a rectangle right now, and this is the only one like this in existence. Then I took some quarter-inch round rod and I bent this line around here, and I made a custom line and a custom drip edge. The rear window is off a 3031 coupe. It's a stock rear window, but essentially all this is customized specific to this car only. It's got standard Model A Sport Coupe quarter panels, which have a seam right here where the wood and the canvas top would have bolted on. This is all the original body back here. In the back, I've got a Model A deck lid that was louvered. This came off an old hot rod I added to this car. It's got 37, 38 Chevy sedan trunk hinges, and then this just opens up like that. Look, got a loose tarp here. So I actually got full Model A trunk usage here with a full-size spare. The battery's back here, and I have a custom fuel tank that is in the back and is shaped like an L and goes down and under the seat. It can carry about, I think, about 14 gallons or so. So a custom fuel tank underneath the car. The taillights are 47 Buick. It took me the longest, about a year, to put together a good set of taillights because the lenses are extremely hard to find. Now I guess they reproduce them with these original 47 Buick taillights. The trim is hard to find, so I got a pair of those. This license plate light was off a 1940 Cadillac LaSalle hearse. Came out of the junkyard. Now, wheels, axles, and springs, this is all traditional Ford stuff. I have on here 1938 Ford wide 5 wheels, 16x4s all the way around, with 38 Ford front wide 5 drum brakes. The front axle is a 1936 Ford half-ton truck or car, same thing. Axle, it actually came out of a pickup truck, but the same as a car. I've got the split front Ford wishbones, and I'm actually using the front spring mount that would have been on the stock 36 axle I'm using for a shock mount. Haven't seen too many people do that. The hydraulic brakes are 1939 Ford hydraulic brakes, the first year for hydraulics. It uses 39 Ford hydraulic clutch and brake pedal assembly, adapted to a dual master cylinder out of a 67 Mustang, so it's got dual master cylinder safety for the front and rear brakes. The rear axle is a 1938 Ford Coupe banjo rear end with a 42 to 48 Ford front wishbone, turned around backwards and used to locate the rear end, and it uses a link arm. The torque tube was removed and the rear end was converted to open drive, because I'll show you the engine and transmission I'm using later in a second. So I don't have the closed torque tube anymore. It's got an open drive shaft like a modern style suspension. The 36 axle is cross steer from the factory. I'm using a Chevy Vega steering box to cross steer the original front axle. So the drivetrain is all original early Ford stuff. Essentially this car on the outside, except for the engine and transmission, is all pre-1947. I wanted to try to build a car that would have been around like a kid as a hot rod in the late 40s, but I couldn't afford to run a flathead V8, which would have been popular to swap in this car back in the day. So I'll show you what I put in here in a second. But essentially everything on the outside of this car, all the accessories, the headlights, the Model A stone grill guard, all the parts on the outside of this car are pre-1947. So it would, if you shot this car back then, it would have the period correct look of being a period correct hot rod that would have been on the road, in the newest thing being the 1947 Buick taillights. Where I did go modern with this thing, the engine and transmission, this is a 1988 Ford 2.3 liter 4-cylinder Mustang engine. It's got a Holley 352 barrel carburetor on it. This was a fuel injection engine. I removed the fuel injection setup. I put the electronic Motorcraft Durspark 2 ignition in it. I put a manual fuel pump on it, and I put a 79 intake manifold on it to run the Holley 2-barrel carburetor. It's all stock internally. This engine's kind of a junkyard engine. It's kind of rough. I need to do a little bit of work to it, but it runs good. It gets like 22 miles to the gallon, and it's hooked to the Mustang T5 5-speed. So that's why I had the open drive shaft conversion on the rear end. Interior-wise, this thing is also pretty much period correct. I have a Dodge Caravan minivan seat in here, which I am going to recover in Naugahyde eventually. But it's using a 40 standard wheel. It's using a 37 column. It's using a 39 Ford shifter handle and knob. It's got like an late 40s, early 50s brass dash insert that would have been in some cars and aftermarket part companies and boats. And then I've got a set of reproduction Stuart Warner gauges in it. Oh, I have a Warner electric brake controller just hanging off the column just for a little bit of flash. And then essentially it's pretty much period correct on the inside. Hold on, I forgot to talk about the tires for you guys. This car is running full bias-ply tires. It's running reproduction Firestone tires from Coupe. It's got 650/16s on the back. These are the Firestone knobs. These have been a truck tire you would have seen on like farm trucks back in the day. They reproduced these. I wanted something a little bit different, like this car is running around back in the back 40. And I get a lot of compliments on these tires. Everybody likes to point at them, and they're pretty soft compound. I've worn them out pretty fast, so I think I'm going to be getting away from the dirt mud truck tires and going to a more traditional Firestone tire like I have on the front. They just don't, they wear pretty fast in the asphalt, so I'm going to go into a more traditional tire. I think I'm going to go up one tire size as well. This is a 650/16. I think I'm going to go to a 700. The front tire is a 600/16 Firestone mounted up on the 38 Ford Wide 5 wheel, and these are wearing a lot better because they got a lot more meat to the tread than the knobby tires. But I wanted the bias-ply tires. I like the look of them. They handle just fine. I don't have any bump steer. I don't have any issues with them running these things 65 miles an hour, no problem. So I got the old Firestones all the way around on the Model A Coupe. Out front, what I'm running here is a set of Guide 682 headlights I got on the front here. These are pretty much a period correct light. We got the marker lights on top turned into turn signals. I found this headlight in the barn, and I had to buy that one to match. You can see that one's got a chrome trim ring and one doesn't. And then this headlight bar, my friend bought it at a swap meet, and I got it from him with this neat little fog light in the middle. Thought that was a cool detail to have. I got my Model A stone guard to protect my Walker radiator in here. This is a reproduction of a factory option from Model A Fords back in the day. You know, no fenders, no bumpers. I made this license plate mount to mount my New York State plate on the front. And the only thing that's kind of not really pretty correct is these chrome tube shocks. They're just a street roddy type shock I got on here just because I had them. And I've got those mounted on cut down F1 Ford truck factory shock mounts. But it's pretty much all original Ford drivetrain, front and rear, and Ford powered. Entirely Ford all the way through. Now when I built this car, I wanted to do a period correct hot rod, but I didn't have a whole lot of money to invest in it, and that's why I started with a body that was pretty much rust free, just a little bit of rust down here. I wanted the original paint looking car, and I collected parts pretty cheap. I wheeled and dealed. I've got about $8,000 in the total into this car, which is a bargain for this thing. If I actually had the money to do a flathead, I would have done a flathead V8 with a 3-speed transmission, done it fully traditional. But this car is very handy for commuting. It gets good gas mileage. Like I said, I get about 22 miles a gallon with it. I can drive it at 65 miles an hour. It works fine. It runs down the road good. It handles actually surprisingly well with the 4 bias-ply tires and the buggy spring suspension. It handles pretty good, and it's a fun car to drive. I've put over 6,500 miles on it in the like 7 or 8 years I've had it on the road and spent a lot of places. And it's a fun car. It gets looks, and it's the look I was going for. The period correct late 40s, very early 50s hot rod that like a kid could have built, you know, out in the backyard in the back 40. So I like this car, and I hope you guys like it too. I just want to do a little video to talk about my Model A Coupe, and we'll do a What You Talking About Wednesday here on this thing, and then next time on the channel we'll do something else. So thanks for watching. We'll see you again right here at the Quick Speed Shop.